This is just such a very inspiring story, and how you let the nature to guide you rather than the opposite.
I just had the idea and a very strong belief that if we did a brand in the right way, in the way that we respect nature and ourselves, we change the dynamic of what the market looks like.
To create a brand that is sustainable, that is ethical, and is a purpose-driven, which nowadays is very difficult for a brand to create, that strong three pillars.
We are ready to explore and take and challenge the beauty industry. The fact that happened in a very organic way, I think really is the proof that the concept works, and also that beauty today and beauty for the future needs to be clean, needs to be responsible, needs to be sustainable.
Hi everyone, here is Maira Genovese. I'm the founder and president at Empower, a global influencer market agency. And this is our Influencer Marketing Uncover podcast. In this episode, I will be diving into one of the most relevant topics across the skincare industry today, sustainable beauty. To do so, I'm very thrilled to be joined by our incredible guest and a lovely friend of mine that I love so much, Francisco Costa, the founder and creative director of Costa Brazil. Francisco's long-time commitment to sustainability and nature drove him to transform his over 20 years of successful career as a top leader in the fashion industry as the women's creative director of Calvin Klein to today to be the creative mind behind this unique luxury and purpose-driven brand, making a difference in sustainable beauty with a clean mission to create products that are beneficial to the body, but also to the spirit, as well as our earth. Francisco, I'm so happy and delighted to have you with me today on our podcast. Thank you so much for your time and to be here with me today. It's such a dream, and I thank you so much for that. And I would love you to say hi to our audience and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Maira, thank you so much. I have to say that, by getting to know you more and more excited I get because you're such a brilliant mind. And it's a pleasure to be here with you, exchanging all those wonderful thoughts, which I think we both share. And it's really something I truly believe that's also this connection to Brazil. The sustainability factor that we all talk about here. It's something that's so present in our lives. We grew up with it. So, I think we share a lot here, and I can't wait to talk to you. By the way, guys, I'm Francisco Costa. I'm the founder and the creator of Costa Brazil. It's a brand in which we started about 3.5 years ago after my 14 years at Calvin Klein as creative director. So we are ready to explore and take and challenge the beauty industry, right? So the fact that happened in a very organic way, in a very sort of inspirational way, I think really is the proof that the concept works, and also that beauty today and beauty for the future needs to be clean, needs to be responsible, needs to be sustainable. So I can't wait to engage in conversations, Maira, because I'm also very excited to hear, and really discuss what you do, which I think really is the future of our business.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Francisco. And then I'm sure if you're here listening to us today, I'm sure you have heard about Francisco before, but this will be the first time that actually going to be hear from Francisco and on how he did and created his own brand, Costa Brazil, and what was the purpose for that, and how he's just leading this new way of creating sustainable beauty brands, and how he's kind of engaging his community and his audience to embrace this challenge of changing our mindset of how we consume beauty. So Francisco, let's start our conversation. So first of all, I think I would love to start with, asking you, how do you think how would you, from your own words, define sustainable beauty? And what is sustainable beauty? And how do you see that this is a way of, that can change consumers' habits? And what you, as a founder and creative mind behind Costa Brazil, is doing to educating consumers of the importance of sustainable beauty?
Myra, that's a very, very, very big and very tough question. Costa Brazil was born really out of tremendous curiosity, and also, again, looking back and feeling the that moment. It's almost like a turning point in my career as I was living Calvin. And what can I bring to the world that would make a difference? That would be a lot more authentic to me. So obviously, by just being curious, I started digging into the beauty industry, doing research, trying to understand how a lab works, or what are the channels that you go through in order to create a brand, which was very exciting because I didn't know anything about it. Very soon I realized that the picture of beauty that I always thought it wasn't there. You know what I mean? I was really disappointed about, a lot of supply chains which I visited, a lot of the labs that I visited. I imagined that the whole industry, by being so fast and so, glamorous, one would think that also the back of the house was clean. So it was shocking to me, as I'm visiting, places in California, the East Coast. However, there was nothing really challenging in terms of how to create a new product, how to create a product that really speaks of nature, beauty in its essence, and how that product would take into the market. Most of what I learned was that, you go, you pick your formulations that already exist, you label it, and you have a product. Obviously, I right away, I knew that wasn't what I intended to do, because, by creating Costa Brazil, I went through a process also of trying to identify a name that really had longevity, right? Because, do I do Francisco Costa beauty line? It didn't resonate. What resonated was the spirit of Brazil. So with that in mind, it was so strong, and Brazil speaks of so many different values, right? I mean, it's just such a wonderful place. It's such a place that communicates freedom, communicates equality, communicates, sustainability, communicates diversity, all in such a great way. So how do I actually express that down the product? And that was my first stop. You know what I mean? By doing the research, realized that nothing there was available, and I had to go back to nature, back to Brazil, to understand exactly what, the insult, what the country that we love, was really about.
A quick question of curiosity here, because you're saying that you were like, at the time that you're working, as a fashion director of Calvin Klein, thinking of, the glamours that you used to be around, right? So the fashion shows, the glamour, the luxury, the perfect picture of what beauty should be. Do you think that, instinct of, creating your own brand and redefine what is beauty is, came from, it started when you were still working within the fashion industry, when you start observing, how the fashion and how beauty were defined at the time, and that led you to where you are today? Or that idea or inspiration came when you left, and then the inspiration just come through because of interest in beauty? So like, just wanted to kind of, the question here is just like, would that, experience that you had before impact on your decision or on your thought process to create Costa Brazil? Because it's two parallel words, right?
I always dressed, the body, right? But never fed the body. So here we go. I want to create something that I actually give you, all those elements, all those amazing ingredients, all that food for the skin. So I'm dressing the skin now, and it's really in a much closer way, in a much more authentic way. It's a perfect connection between what I did in the past, which was really, the aesthetic,
Yeah.
look like. But here, Costa Brazil, the foundation of it is how to dress your skin, how to make you feel good, how to feel good really about using the product, because it's a correlation here because the ingredients being from the Amazon, they're very organic. You feel them, they're empowered by nature. So that communication is truly, the catalyst, for Costa Brazil in its future. So it's very direct.
And then
Both
what
of
you say,
those.
like Costa Brazil is empowering by nature, it's such a strong, USP for the brand, and it's so real, and it's just like because it's truly the ingredients that you use for the products, they are literally empowered by nature. And I know your story about your trip to Amazon and how all started, but I think it's a very kind of, interest for you. Maybe just tell us a little bit, like how that, connection with Brazil, but above all with Amazon, and how that led you to, getting all the ingredients from actually for our source, which is Brazilian. We're all very well known for the Amazon, right? So Amazon is such a strong, like let's say, value of our country. So tell us a little bit of a story of like Amazon, Costa Brazil, and your experience there, and when and how the ingredients idea came through.
It's really wonderful because as I was leaving Calvin, you know what I mean. I had the brand already. I had the premises of the brand book, which was very beautiful, gorgeously done, and what have you. And again, in the search for the ingredient story, not a story, the ingredients themselves. I said I have to really dig back. I was working with the Special Olympics at the time. I was designing a segment for the opening ceremony. And just so happens that a couple of friends were going to the Amazon as well. So I tagged along with that trip. The trip was canceled at the very last minute. So I called the agents, just send me anywhere. And it was the best moment also. It was also a very catalytic moment for what we did. I ended up going to Acre region, which is a northern state in the Amazon, of course, and I stayed with the Waiwanawas. And I had no idea, here we go, I have my backpack, some water bottles, and I embarked on this crazy journey, which is about 6.5 hours, on the Gregorius River. So just that experience alone, you're starting to understand, the rhythm of the forest, right? The sounds, the scents, and the river itself was really magical. So I get there and not really understanding how to approach everything because I didn't have really. I knew that I wanted to get to know the forest, and the community, but I didn't know what was it about. What was my goal here? It's really to scent it. It is to scent, to smell. What am I tapping into? And kind of that trip, the 6.5 hours was very liberating to me because I started to become a little calmer and let go of everything that I actually thought previously that I had to do. I was already creating this anxiety of having to do things my way. This is not my way. This is nature's way. And it was really incredible because every day there was a surprise. So I get there, slightly, nervous because so detached. I didn't know anybody that was coming, on that trip as well. I had a videographer with me, and I didn't even know the person, so there was no like really intimacy there with anyone. And as it's starting to get to know as the trip went by, the 7 days, it was one lesson after the next. The way I interacted with the community, the way they spoke to you, everything was really magical. But the turning point again happened one evening, throughout the whole community, there was always fire. There was always bonfires throughout. And I thought day and night. And I thought it was a little peculiar that. But I never even questioned either. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, there's fire. So one evening, I saw them tossing some rocks into the fire, and then it would sparkle, and then a very, very distinct scent would come out of it. I said, this is very peculiar. What is it? So they introduced me to breu, which is a resin that comes from the almacega tree, which is this incredible, magnificent tree, very, very robust. It's like an incredibly beautiful tree. and releases this resin, which is obviously 100%, organic, natural. And what that does that do is mosquito repellent, number one, and that's why the fire is out, because none of us got bitten by at any moment. You know what I mean? While we were in the village. Then I took that, on my return trip. I went to the northeast of Brazil, another area, Natal, which I started working with the lab. And the first thing, as I bring the breu to be analyzed, besides being mosquito repellent, besides having an incredible scent, we discover incredible properties like antimicrobial properties, antibacterial properties, So it's like a little magic just in my hands there. You know what I mean? That was really, really amazing. So here we go. I get to experience the forest. I get to understand how they source so many things, the breu and so on and so forth. And then I embarked on second trip and third trip. Those trips were a lot more guided, were less organic.
Yeah.
Because then I started engaging with Conservation International. And Conservation International has been one of the organizations that I always supported in the past, but here, I asked them for guidance, how do I actually engage, the communities, but if I have to actually source, so it was, again, a process of a lot of research. It was like a year and a half with just researching ingredients, just looking through, the communities that actually certified and had, certifications in order actually for us to be buying, the ingredients and so on and so forth, because it's very difficult also. You can't just go to an indigenous community and buy an ingredient from them. So CI is one of our pillars, and that brings it back to the sustainable way of doing things, which is really, we have to look at 360, right? Yeah. And I have been very fortunate that after discovering so many ingredients, which we haven't even launched them yet, I partnered also with another manufacturer in Brazil, who started already then taking care of all the logistics, which was very haunting to me. I could walk out with kilos of one product, but, it had to be done properly, obviously. And this was created, Maira, in a very, again, in a very basic, simple way. I didn't have a staff. I didn't have, anyone. I just had the idea and a very strong belief that if we did a brand in the right way, in the way that we respect nature and ourselves, we could change, the dynamic of what the market looks like. Because, there's a lot of greenwashing out there, right? I mean, because the amount of carbon footprint, you're doing your thing. It's not like that. I think, the challenge here with Costa Brazil is to be really honest about the whole process, transparent about the whole process. And it hasn't been a very easy task, which I think makes it even more exciting.
Exactly. And I love that you said like that you're trying to do that. First of all, like amazing story. And I've heard this story before, and even now, like listening again, I get so fascinated about it, about especially the first experience that you had in the forest, and how everything, you went there for one reason, and then out of the sudden everything is changed throughout the process. This is just such a, a very inspiring story, and how you let the nature to guide you rather than the opposite. It is amazing. And how more amazing as you started alone, as you said, and you create a brand with three strong pillars, right? You create a brand that is sustainable, that is ethical, and is a purpose driven, which nowadays is very difficult for a brand to create, that strong three pillars, because as you said, it is not an easy journey, it's not an easy thing to do. And the fact that you said that transparency is one of the key elements of the brand, for me, like transparency nowadays when it comes to, especially to beauty brands, is so important if you want to engage with your consumer, with your audience, especially when you talk about the Generation Z and the millennials, because they're much more savvy. They are much more like, they consume digital, but in a much more intelligent way, as we used to do 5 years ago. because they're much more attached to brands that has a purpose, that are transparent with everything they do, with the ingredients that they use. And I love that you said that. And then I can see, like, in the industry today, so many brands trying to type into the sustainability and, position their brands and their product as sustainable. But how do you, and I think this is not for everyone, like, it's easy for you to say, oh, we are a sustainable brand, but not being transparent about how you are sustainable. What are you doing, with what is your ingredients that you're using, what's the process for producing your product. So how do you think sustainability can be conveyed authentic within the luxury beauty industry? Because now I've, like, my background, I worked in the fashion industry before as well, and I can see the trending coming from luxury brands trying to type in sustainability, right? But how do you think that, how the brands can convey authenticity when want to type into the sustainable word?
So I'm going to backtrack here just to give a little feedback in how the whole thing came about to me naturally. I grew up in a very small town in Brazil, very small. At the time, it was 3,000 people. Today's 8,000. Out of growing up in an environment with a family that was really very exciting, because my mom was very entrepreneurial, and she had a children's wear manufacturer, which she manufactured clothes. I would see that she would take all the leftovers of every cutting, and she would go to smaller little communities outside the town, the rural areas, and she taught those women how to make quilts with the leftover fabric.
Amazing.
Next thing, this woman realized that she's empowering women in that little town, because she's, like, teaching them how to sew, teaching them how to embroider, and so on and so forth. Next thing, she opens a home for the kids so that the mothers actually go to work. So I never thought of that, but this coming back to Brazil and going to the Amazon, I think was a little bit of, like, that's the same urge, a natural instinct to go, and see what's the right way to do it, not to exploit, but really to contribute.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really the beauty of it. I think that was very strong throughout my growing up, and then came through my career. I was at Calvin, which nobody talked about, neither did I. But I did collections that were 100% 360. For instance, I did this collection in which I ended up buying all remnants of oil yarns from, like, 3 mills in Scotland, things that were sitting there forever, and another 2 mills in Italy. I mixed all this yarn, I made textile out of it, and became, like, upcycle. You know what I mean? I didn't know what I was doing, but I mean, that was already brewing.
Yes, that's amazing. And at the time, probably no one has, mentioned that the collection was created by, using sustainable fabrics, right?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
But then, towards the your question now is the desire of making it perfect is there, but I think it's very, very challenging. I think as a growing company, we're still learning how to be transparent. We're still trying to communicate with the right partners, which is very, very important. And again, it's a learning curve. We had several different suppliers, 2, for instance, which I love the ingredients and what have you, which also brought ingredients to them to develop. And in a period of 6 months, show me, the reality, where this comes from, who was supporting, and it was not there. So, you encounter challenges as we go along, and then make really fast decisions how to improve the system, right? So I think that's what it is, but not just in the ingredients. I think packaging is majorly.
Yes.
So to create a culture in which packaging really represents, and packaging is everything, guys. Look at the amount of garbage. Let's put it that way. Do not be fancy about it. it's out in the world. I mean, the incredible amount of packaging, we have to look at it. So by feeling that, we're already, making strides of improving that system. You know what I mean? The whole thing brings me to the next step into where we are now. So a year ago, I started talking to a very large, very incredible corporation called Amyris, based in San Francisco, the San Francisco area. And I decided to partner with them. It's a biotech company. It's a really, really forward-thinking company with a tremendous, amazing CEO, a really, really great, dynamic guy. And now we are collaborating. Now we're together. And why would I partner with a biotech company after saying to myself, I'm natural, I'm organic, I am, the Amazon means so much to me, and all that, so on and so forth. Why? It took me a while to understand also the proposition, but that came very strong to me as I'm doing the research in the company, that the future really is a combination of both. The future really is taking what nature offers to us, right? Appropriate it and make it even more sustainable, but protecting nature and not by exploiting nature. So it's really interesting that that came so strong to me, that also, in order for me to actually to grow the brand, that was somewhat the way to go. So I'm very thrilled to obviously to share that with all your community here, because that's the future. Clean beauty is clean chemistry. It's extracting from nature its best. And really, through this process, which I didn't know about, which I came to find out within learning about Amyris, is that all of the molecules and all the ingredients that Amyris does comes from this process of fermentation, in a very simple old process,
Yes.
which fermentation of sugarcane and yeast. And then that gets transformed in so many, I'm simplifying here because it's much more technical than that. That gets transformed into amazing ingredients, including esqualane, so on and so forth. And now we're looking into also develop it. I'm so puzzled and curious about that because it's something that I don't know.
That you don't know, yeah.
And going into the beauty industry, which I didn't know, now I'm partners with a
tremendous, yeah,
bring me the opportunity to grow on the right way. And the right way really is clean chemistry in that sense.
You mentioned the word community a few times throughout our conversation, right? So, like, I think you mentioned 4 times here the word community, which is a word that I personally believe and love a lot, because I believe that community can really drive the message of a brand out there when you have a loyal community. So, moving into technology now, because like when you were at Calvin Klein, the way, like, that time, the way you used to do marketing was very different from the way we do marketing today, right? The way we approach marketing. So 5 years ago, like PR, traditional market was the way of promoting a brand and engaging with, magazines and engaging with journalists. It was a way of you creating your own community to get the message of a brand, the awareness of a brand out there. Not saying that PRs and magazine are not relevant on the present today, they are. But then the industry and marketing landscape has evolved so much with the arrival of social channels like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter, YouTube, just to mention a few. So we have been kind of, like all of us in the past 5 years, we've just been dragged into, like social media platforms, and there's a lot of information, a lot of things, to read and to understand, a lot of platforms to navigate it from. And then we all have been learning, with that. So like, okay, how I use those platforms to creating content to engage the community that I wanted to engage. So coming from, like we are both from, I love to say that, yeah, so I love to say that I've been through that process because I started my career 20 years ago. So I'm old fashioned when it comes to marketing, and I've been learning and evolving with, the industry as the industry change. But like how you see now for you, right? Personal, like Francisco, how do you see that influencer marketing, social platform, social channels are driving are driving to build community today? Because it is so like nowadays there's no discussion that you have to engage on social and with influencers to build community. But how do you see that from your own, like on words?
It's very interesting because the concept is old, right? It's not a
Yes.
new. But if you think about it, you think Warhol, Andy Warhol, pop art. That's what he did. He engaged, his community and painted portraits of them. He created a flow of cash coming in, and he became famous by building this community, right? What was missing at that time really was the channels, because technology didn't exist, but the idea existed. Then you go back to Calvin, for instance. When I joined Calvin, the legacy was just so major, right? Oh my God, what do I do here? I can't. There's nothing I need to change, right? There's nothing. I cannot change one bit of it. But I went back to his marketing campaigns, which are always so genius, and I realized, guys, the man was like the first one to have an influencer. Not the first, but he tapped influencers then. Brooke Shields at the age of 13. I mean, you couldn't do that today, but I mean, he started tapping into that world. So did YSL in the 70s, you know what I mean, did a little bit of that. So again, it's history repeating itself, but thank God we have MGM and Power. So with that being said, I decided at Calvin to really play off of that. So I made my voice very visible by engaging with Hollywood, by engaging with community, because I knew that there was a platform that I could be expanded because their voice, spoke so much of. So, I'm talking about, 25 years, 20 years ago, right? So we made a mark. So today, people look at my work at Calvin. Oh my God, you dressed everyone. Yes, I did. It was deliberate because we're trying to create a language, for that. I was the first designer to actually bring an influence, a then real influencer to
at the Met Ball, right? And I think it was the Met Ball as well. Like you brought Chiara Ferragini, right?
Exactly, and Chiara is so cool. But the difference there, also by being in the cast of things was that it was very natural. Chiara came, I love Chiara, smart. We can have a conversation. There's also that, right? So the difference today is perhaps less elitist, even deeper. It's been more exciting because now you're giving everyone the opportunity to be that influencer, to be the voice, and to set, the interests of everyone and really target those markets. I think it's incredible for different brands, for different types of brands. So I think we're very true at Costa Brazil because our mission is a very dynamic one. We believe of equality. We believe in all body types. We believe in all colors, so on and so forth. So we have an opportunity here to target a huge amount of people and bringing them in to contribute to the brand itself. So I think also that communication of just not using, but having people on your portfolio is different today because today you want those people being part of your brand. So dynamics start changing, right? They're becoming the real brand as we grow that community.
Yes, then we go to the creative economy, right? So how the creative economy now is really driving the future of influencer marketing. But I love what you said because it is so true. We used to build community throughout voices of celebrities, of the Hollywoods that you said that we engaged at the time of Calvin Klein. Because like when I think about you and about Calvin Klein, immediately came on my head those images that I used to see on magazines like Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, or all the websites that talk about fashion. Francisco Costa with dressing a Hollywood celebrity for Oscar or for Golden Globes or for Met Gala. And I think at the time you were one of the pioneers of really engaging with that community and dressed and all. So I have clear vision and images of me reading those newspapers and that magazine and seeing you with so many celebrities that you dressed, and then you'd build a community at the time, right? Within the environment of Hollywood. But now you can build a community, but it's through social. It's a different way of, creating community. But the formula is the same, but with a different, platforms and tools to do so, which I love that, because we see the evolution, right? The evolution of marketing, evolution of, how can you, be more, strategically, and how can we leverage from the social platforms in a way that you can now build community that has a much more wider reach, right? Because when you're talking about an influencer that, for example, even like, let's talk about Kiara, right? I think today she has over 20 million followers, which is like an amazing, for someone to have over 20 million followers. But Chiara today, her reach is beyond Italy, right? So her reach is global. And I think that is the beauty when you start, understand who can be the voice of your brand that's going to engage with a community in a global level, because your brand message now can fly around the globe. As before, we're much more limited of how much reach and engagement we could have, with the voice that we're using to promote our brand. And then, technology is here, and I think there's no way that we can change this. We just need to embrace, right? To embrace and learn with it and think, okay, so technology is here. How can I better engage with technology? And on your case for Costa Brazil, is for me, it's just like it's very clear. How can you use technology to spread the message of sustainable beauty, right? Mm-hmm. How can you educate it, your audience, but not just your audience, but start educating consumers that are not really aware of the importance of, thinking through about what you're buying, about what you're using on your body, not just about what you're eating. But I think your role here is not just to engage with your consumers, but also engage with communities that need that education, to help them to change their mindset.
Yeah, to your point, I think I'd like to say about Costa Brazil is I really like to create systems, right? You create a system that automatically you're part of, that you trust. Then what happens? There's no question. You just go because there's that trust level. If you offer everything that one needs to supply for the daily ritual, you made somebody's life easier. So that's when it comes to a product, development, viewing. But then actually building a community, why we believe that the influencers we're talking about are so important, because they build trust. They are the people that are speaking about the brand in a great way. But now there's a second layer of the people that would just do the commerce. They're there to make that amplification even more greater. So I think, China has really, really has gone ahead of the West, right, in a big way. I mean, the way they do marketing, digital marketing, however, and e-com is really, really fast. So I think it's interesting also giving you and I the opportunity to be our own, have our own businesses. We own it, and we can actually amplify that message. So I like that concept of trust when it comes to, the influencer community, because you have to choose them, right? Especially in the beginning, how you build it, and you really to speak of that, because you have so much knowledge, you do such great work, but that trust is great. But I also think that you have different typologies, right? If you have an influencer that really will talk about the ethos of the brand, that are activists. I think everyone should be an activist anyway. But I think, those activists, they help ingrain the brand, become stronger and become more transparent and become more for real. and then you have, layers of different people that actually amplify that in different areas. But
Yeah,
how do you, Ida, because you are really tremendous in what you do, you know, how do you see that evolution? Because I think there's a turning point right now, right? I sense there's something there that will change even more dynamic.
yeah, no, like first, like for me, I don't see influencer marketing as a transactional think at all. Like I think there's a lot of brands and agencies that they think are working with influencers is a transactional it's a transactional way of doing marketing, and it's not like that, because I think influencers today, as you said, everyone can be an influencer. You yourself, it is an influencer. I am myself, I'm an influencer for my community, for a community of women that wanted to be an entrepreneur, of women that want to have their own business. So we all can be an influence within our own community, right? So I think just to demystify the way that you think that influencers is just the ones that has a thousand and million of followers. So that's why today when we talk about influencers, we talk about tiers of influencers, right? We have the nanos, we have the micros, the mid tiers, the macros, the mega. When I started the business, there were no nomenclature at all. So it's just like mega influencers and that's it. So today we're valuing as well the nanos. Who are the nanos? The ones that has 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 followers, because each individual can influence their community. Like for example, my mom on her social account, she talks a lot about essential oils, how she uses essential oils, like when someone has a headache, or how she uses essential oils on her day-to-day life. And she has 1,000 and something followers. But the ones that follow her, they really engage. They ask questions about, okay, but how do we do that? How can I get the mix of peppermint with lavender? So that is so important today for everyone to understand that influence is not necessarily only related to how many followers you have. So we all can be an influencer, and we can all have a voice within our own community. And then I think this industry of digital marketing and influencer marketing is evolving and changing so rapidly. So when I started 5 years ago, it was a completely different landscape where it is today. And I love to see how this is evolving, how is it changing, because I think there's more and more opportunity for us to use those voice for, for better things, for a better words. It's just how can we, through those voice, creating message that we can, like for example, for Costa Brazil, that we can educate communities, and then we can educate people of, sustainable beauty, and how best, they have to think about when they're buying products, and educating them on the ingredients, and how every individual can do a good thing for the planet, for the earth, and you don't need to do much in order to, to create an impact. And that's what I love about influencer marketing, because there's so much ways that you, together with those community, you can just, making an impact that sometimes is beyond our imagination. And as I said, it's changing so rapidly. Now we're talking a lot about metaverse, and I think we talk about that in Paris when we met. Look at what Balenciaga did for Paris Fashion Week. This is kind of the future of 2022. I'm not saying that's the future, the very long-term future. It's the future of now. So we're going to be talking a lot about metaverse. And what is metaverse? Metaverse is the word of the avatars, right? So it's getting the word of the gaming. Like we have a parallel word today that is the gaming word, that no one is really talking about that community. But oh my God, that community, it's so powerful, it's so strong, that now what the metaverse would do is just bringing that whole world of gaming to the mainstream. And metaverse is all about, direct to avatar. So how can we engage with, consumers on the digital landscape that are the avatars? So we have the direct to consumer and direct to avatar. So if you're here today listening us, don't think that we are going crazy, but it's so true. Like there is a new way of that we're going to have to start thinking about how can we engage with the digital personality of each individual, of each consumer. And that personality can be different, the personality of our real world versus the personality of the digital world. And again, we cannot run away of it. This is a reality. So we have, to start thinking about, I have to create a strategy for direct to consumer, and I have to create a strategy for direct to avatar, because they're buying, they're consuming. And it is, I think, again, typing what Balenciaga did 2 weeks ago in Paris, it is exactly that. So how can you create a strategy that you're not just going to engage with, your real consumer, but with the digital consumer and the gaming community and the social media community. So, and for us as an agency and for brands to keep up with the change and to innovate it ourselves every time, it's just about going there and test and learn. I was with a client yesterday, and they were like, "Oh, but we are so nervous about going for shop live streaming because we never done, and we're a big corporation." And I said, "Yes, but if you don't test, you're never gonna do, because there's never gonna be the right moment, and it's never gonna be perfect." And it's like TikTok. You have to go test and learn. And shop live streaming, metaverse, gaming, just go there, test and learn. Understand what the community from those platforms are looking for. Learn with your community. Get them to the sentiment analysis. Let them to talk, and then learn with them and evolve with them. But that is how, I see that brands should be, reacting into the change. It's just going there and do it without thinking, and learn and test and learn again, and get the insights. Get the insights of your consumers. Get the insights of your community, because they're the ones that are building the brand with you, right? So you have to listen to them.
Oh, you're so right. It's so amazing because 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to meet somebody in the gaming industry. I had no idea what he was talking about. You know what I mean? It was like so far off of my scope. Now it's just, you feel it's already there, right? I mean, you just give an example. It's already here and it's here to stay. So I think you're so correct. That speed, this velocity in which we have to react, without judgment, right? Oh, is this not for the brand? This is not my brand, or what have you. It's not a very healthy thinking if you want to really be on top of a game, because tomorrow there will be something new and you have to jump on it. So I think it's very exciting that you actually
it is very exciting, and it's very exciting how you just, like, as you said, like before, you were just a brand, try to engage with your consumers, to get the awareness, to get the conversion. But now you have the influencers, you have the talents, you have the creators, you have the voices, that they will be, your brand's spokesperson, right? So they are the ones that's going to get the message of a brand out there. And this is amazing. I think this is beauty, that it's not just the brand that needs to do the work, because now you can engage with a huge community, and all together we can spread the message.
Yes, Maira, and I can't wait to do something with you and the community that you're helping us build. Let's do something big that actually could change the light in much how we think about, really activate, because I think Costa Brazil is a very alive brand. We always doing, collaborations with brand, not just your commercial collaborations. We really always very engaged, right? But I mean, to make a mark and engage in the community by doing good, by being good.
And I think on your case, Costa Brazil, the way I see is just like engage the community, not talk about your product, about your face serum, or about, your body oil, but talk about the purpose of your brand, and how good the purpose is, and how the purpose of your brand is helping community in the Amazon forest, that is helping, a lot of, people. That is, your brand is not just a product-led driven brand, but your brand is just beyond that. So you have a massive purpose and meaning. And I think that's how we should go for it. It's just like spreading the message of your purpose, not spreading the message of how good your product is. Because once you get the community to be loyalty and to be and trust on what you're doing as your purpose, they automatically will, without us having to force them, they will consume your product, because the meaning and the purpose of a brand is so strong that you don't need to promote the product. You have to promote your purpose, and that's gonna lead you to sell your products.
I mean, here we're into something, huh?
Yeah, so the strategies come out now, basically. So when I get some insights, I just like go for it. Just funny story here, just say that as I'm so like I have this ideas and instinct when I have in conversation, that we have a guest on our podcast 2 months ago. And as I was talking to him, if everyone that follow us here, you probably, if you saw the episode with Siang. So Siang, he is based in Singapore, and he's an expert on live streaming. He's expert in everything that comes to technology and innovation. And he's been based between Singapore and Shanghai. And throughout our conversation, I just thought, I need to hire this guy because he's amazing. And I'm going to bring him over to London and I'm going to hire him. And then as we started conversation, I had this thought. And at the end of the podcast, I said, Siang, I want to hire you. And he was like, what's she talking about? So to make this show short, I hired him and he started Ep.20 Power this week. He came all out Singapore. I gave him the work visa and he's now in London working at Ep.20 Power. And I just come up with a strategy for us to do something together. It's amazing.
That's something we have to step into as well.
Yeah. So yeah, live streaming. Like, how do you see? Because we're gonna work together in creating a live streaming shop. So what's your view when it comes to sell live? Like, because it's something that, again, looking back to our past 20 years ago, 10 years ago, we wouldn't have any, live streaming shop that people could buy immediately from, from the type of a button. So how do you see that?
Right. If you think of all those TV shows, I mean, conceptually it was already there, but here technology is bringing to become much more efficient. And I think it's great. It's almost like to have your Today show, on your window front, communicating directly, have those people engaged. I mean, it's so much easier. And I think that's, it's already there. I shouldn't say that's not, I think that a lot of people, we haven't amplified that message, right? We haven't made that yet a must here. But I think it's, China, I think that they do that so well.
Yeah, no, China, they are the pioneers, right? So they started all of that, and like, they are just, ahead of the game. And that's one of the reasons I brought Siang. So now we have Siang here to tell us all the, how can we do better when we do shop live streaming, because he has a lot of experience coming from China. Because they are the pioneers. They started all of that, and they are like, if you see the percentage of the sales that they're doing online versus the percentage of the sales they are doing offline, it is insane. Francisco, we could stay here talking forever, but I just have one more question for you about that I wanted to type in. Let's talk about retail experience, in getting consumers to go offline to experience a brand and a product. You have to create a very, very special, bespoke and personalized experience to not let the people to buy online, but getting the effort to live in home to visit a store. So how do you see that the retailer space needed to transform when it comes to creating experience to their customers to come to their physical space?
I think it's interesting because retail, if you spoke of retail 5 years ago, people did this to you, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it was the network. Nobody could talk about retail anymore. Retail seemed to be a disaster. I think what happened in the last 3 years, especially amplified by COVID, is desire for us to communicate, hug again. and being closed again, but in a different way. Your traditional retail configuration does no longer work. You see that how many stores went out of business in the last, how many department stores, how that structure of those big department stores completely disappeared. It's still there, but so many of them closed. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity here, right? For us, for every brand, really to engage, in three-dimensionally, like the Balenciaga show, for instance, but in store. You create a reason, you create a destination which somebody can actually have the experience of the brand, the products, but also get deep into that gaming mindset and being part of another world. You could have also engagement with your window, with your Today Show. So, the space has to give you more. Also, if you think of all those traveling museums, right? Experiential museums that we see. It's a Van Gogh exhibition. It's this exhibition. Is already telling you that not just retail, it's across the board. So you have to be mobile, right? And when you think about this live streaming, can you imagine how much a company can save? You could do the live stream from anywhere. You could engage. You could be mobile. You could be all over the world. You could have that shop everywhere, really fast, and in great service, right? Because I think the service also has to be immediate. So the pods of communication in which we create the hubs or those community centers, they really have a place in town today, right? And I think that has to be made broader. I think Brazilians are kind of very forward in many ways. I remember when Red Bull, opened this community center in São Paulo, which people came and just hang out, people, kids, coming after the clubs and they're having Red Bull. It was just it was so forward, something that happened in São Paulo. I don't know if you remember, and still very inspiring to think about, So I think the community center idea, it's something that also we talked about for so many years, but it's not too far from that. It's a place that's reliable. Again, you have all your systems there. You can make a purchase. You can learn, right? Because a lot now is also education. You have to be engaged in all the senses, when it comes to technology, but also the organic scent that you can experience, the touch. Everything has to be there, and everything has to be done in a really, magic way, but also very fast. Right? You should be able to ship. You should be able to, have the delivered to your house in 2 hours. So there's a lot, I think, in retail that has to be thought out. You know what I mean? But I think this technology that we're experiencing now, I think, will be really the beginning of the engagement. Imagine your avatars, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So just having you being on the screen and being able to be sharing yourself in that community and communicating with them at the same time making a purchase.
Can imagine. That is amazing. And then I think is like for the retail experience will be all about how can you connect the technology with the experience, right? So it's how can you innovate it in that. So I think I've mentioned to you about the experience that I had last weekend when I went to Shoreditch to see the new Gucci pop-up shop. And I was just like, wow, like these guys are really, really, knowing how to create now new ways of, getting people into a shop, but creating a very unique experience. And then they really combine the technology with the retailer space. So you come inside the pop-up and then it was all about technology and interaction with music and QR codes and, even the avatars they had there as well. So you could try on the clothes and then you can see the mirror, like, if the size was right, the size was also, they have like the mirror telling you if you need a bigger size, a smaller size, how does it fit on you? And the mirror was talking to, it was something like, incredible, but it's an experience that you wanted to have, like I wanted to go to a shop where I can have all of that, and then to complement they have a coffee place space on the third floor where they're offering like coffee and snacks for you after you have the experience of, the purchase that you had on the space. So I think the whole experience was so well, connected and balanced between technology, but also trying on physically the clothes. It's just like, and I think that is the future. So if you wanted to innovate it and getting the footfall, that's what brands will have to start doing.
I totally agree with you. I think that was really the core of that. It was very warm. You still feel the presence of human, right? You still felt the clothes.
Exactly. Which is amazing, to be honest with you, because like we're very used to buy online, right? So you buy online, you receive the bag at home, which is amazing. So they knock your door, they deliver a bag, you try on at home, and then if you don't like, they come and pick up, which is amazing. However, now that you can have those type of experiences, like talking about my personal experience there, it's good to be in a place that you have someone serving you and you're trying, but you also have the element of the tech behind to support that experience, because you're having that human connection, right? So you still have the technology, but you have the human connection around you. And that was like, for me, it was like, wow, yeah. So if brands wanted to engage consumers to go back to retail spaces, they're gonna have to start thinking on experience that is much more tailored and holistic and and bespoke and special, right? Because we all, like, if I have to leave home, I wanted to go to a place where I will see something that is very special. Otherwise, I'll buy online.
And also, I think it's with so much more technology and thinking coming to the table, it's just time to explore.
Yes.
The faster you go, the ones that are really, like you mentioned before, somewhat fearless about what it is, just doing it for the trial so they can get the data. And however, I mean, the better it will be, because the evolution of it is going to be really fast. And that's the retail. It's this communication. It's the community building.
Totally. Yes. Francisco, again, we can stay here forever. I think we're going to do a part 2, right? So we're going to do a part 2 of our podcast because we have a lot to talk. Francisco, I I love you so much. And then it's like what a pleasure to have you with me today here on our Influencer Marketing Uncover podcast. I'm sure this episode will be a success because, you have your own community, people that love you, Francisco, as you are, for everything you have achieved. So I'm sure we're going to have, our listening loving to know more about you, about your essence, about your brand, your purpose, and the amazing, brand that you have created to really, change, the way beauty works with sustainability. And I think, you're one of the pioneers on that, and it's so beautiful to be working with you, to see, what you're creating and be part of, of your word and supporting you on your growth. Is just being, amazing experience for me and for the team. So thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you, Maira. I mean, this is, exchange of delights here, for me too. I echo your words, and it's been really eye-opening for me to work with you and learn about the world and really, really translate what we tried to do in the past, but really in a big way. And you're so ahead of the game, and we love you.
Amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone that's been here today with us, listening to our conversation. Hope you have enjoyed. I'm sure you had. And please be tuned on our next episodes of our Influencer Marketing Uncover. If you don't follow us, please start following us on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and YouTube. And again, thank you so much for being here with us today. And I see you on our next episode. Thank you so much.